So we're going to have a look at Boo's ears. I made them here now. Excuse me, sorry. So we're going to have a look at Boo's ears. So here's the little head, and you can see we've trimmed around the eyes, a bit of grooming, and we've moulded that into shape as well, pulling some of the stuffing into the nose, so you've got it how you want it. And then we need to attach these little ears. So I've made the ears, and this is the shape. Here you see. So it naturally curves around at the bottom slightly and then narrows in at the top, and take our tail end. I'll just sew in, oh, I picked up 2 needles. I'll just sew in the tail from the start of the work. So I'm just going to take that through the fabric. Again, such a forgiving fabric that we've created here. See the drape as well. I love this drape. There's no stiffness to it at all. Do check your tension square before you start making Joodigurumi toys. Obviously it's a toy, so therefore you think it doesn't matter about the size necessarily. True, very true. Also though, bear in mind that to get the flopsy drape and it's a recipe, isn't it? A pattern of any kind. It's basically a recipe. So if you miss out a stage, you may not get the same finish that that was originally intended, and that might be fine. It might be the way you like it made, which is fine. I'm using these ridiculously large scissors today because I've forgotten to bring my scissors with me, so it doesn't matter, they work. So I've sewn in the end there, see, and that's now invisible because of this fantastic fabric. But yeah, waffling on about the tension square, just going back to that, it is an important part of this recipe, if you like, this pattern, in not only in the size of your end created toy, in the amount of yarn that you need to create your toy, but also in the consistency and the drape of the design. And that might be lacking. You may get a more rigid toy, which you might be happy with. That's fine too, but it is something to bear in mind. So what I've done is I've folded this flopsy ear shape in half, so together at the top and at the bottom, and then I just over sew, so into one side and over sew all the way down. Can you see? Sorry, sometimes I move my hands out of the camera without thinking. All the way down one side, and then we open this ear out and stitch the top of the ear. So I've gone all the way down there to the bottom corner, the 2 together, and then in true Joodigurumi spirit, I'm going to go back up so that my toy can be played with and thrashed about and possibly even held by the ear, based on my experience with my children. I always belt and braces when it comes to sewing up my Joodigurumi toys, because my Joodigurumi toys are played with by children. Not everyone's will be. I'm particularly cautious because mine are. Okay, so here now, if I pop my finger through, if it's long enough, yeah, you can see. So what I've created is a tube. So the top is not sewn together and the bottom is not sewn together. And then I flatten this tube with the seam that I've just created in the center. And I'll just put a stitch in the top there to create that flattened shape. Okay, I'm going to do 2 to make sure that stays nice and still for me. And this becomes Boo's ear, and it stays open at the bottom, which gives it a little bit more shape. Obviously that's not the shape a dog's ear is, it's just this design. It just gives it that little bit of shape. Okay, and then I decide on the placement of that ear and stitch it to the top of the head. I advise you to, before stitching this ear on, repeat the process with your second ear. So I do advise you to make both ears before you stitch them on. Reason being is you may have seen videos I've done before. Placement of ears, eyes, noses on these little toys really changes their face and the character and the expression that they give. Just make sure I don't over pull that, so I keep that corner sewing in the end. And it can make such a difference that it's nice to have both ears, and then you can move them around, which I'll show you in a moment. I've just sewn that end in, and then thread this one, and I'll fold that in half. And repeat the process. So I've sewn both of my ears now, and now I can, let me show you. Here's the little head, just pop that needle there. So I can choose now, so you can have your ears low down, far forwards, high up, further back, and you can move these ears around and choose where you like your Amigurumi Boo toy's expression the most. I tend to do them in a V with the eyes, so we've got the nose, the eyes, and then the ears. That's where I tend to sew them. It doesn't make it right. You can have them further forward, you could have them further back. It really is your choice, but do make both ears first, and then you can move them around and choose where you prefer them to be. And then we just rethread that end, which we didn't cut, we left it on for sewing the ears to the head. So we just rethread that, and I sew them so that they're in this line there. So into the head and into the front part of the ear, and the reason I do the front part is so that that double seam gets tucked underneath. So into the head, catch a little bit of the fabric, and then I'm missing this back row, can you see? And I'm just going into the front row of stitches and the fold at the top, and that tucks the seam underneath. So I've gone to one side, then I come back and again to the front. So a little bit of the fabric in the head, and then catching that front part of the two seams at the top of the ear, bit of fabric from there, and then just these front loops. And I'll do one in the corner there, and I'll just scooch back to the middle to make it nice and strong. So if trampolining being held by one ear is required, trampolining being held by one ear will be okay. Okay, and then take that underneath the ear and make a couple of little stitches and loop through to do a little knot there, just to be sure. And then I'm going to plunge this end through stuffing and the fabric of the head several times, leaving a nice long tail inside. So if the worst happens and an ear does come loose, I know that tail is there. I can look for it, try and pull it out and use it to mend any little problems that might occur. There we are, that's plenty of yarn left in there. Let's just snip that. And there, Boo's got one ear, and then we'll pop the other one on the other side the same way. And it's really starting to come together now.